Welcome back to the Fear and Beer podcast,
where we discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies, and just a little bit of beer.
So kill the lights, grab a cold one, and join us as we dive into this mad world we love.
I'm Nick.
I'm Seamus.
And I'm Jamie.
Like scary movies.
Uh-huh.
Here's Johnny.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Did you miss me?
Aren't you drinking?
I never drink. Why?
And as a reminder to all listening, if you want to help us to continue growing as a podcast, don't forget to leave us a 5-star review on whichever streaming platform you use.
To stay up to date with us and all of our episodes, be sure to follow all of our socials. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Fear and Beer Pod.
Feel free to reach out to us. We love to interact with you all.
Well, we were going to do an episode on the spec map, but there's one less thing to speculate about, and that is A Quiet Place. We have the official announcement from Halloween Horror Nights. I saw it come through a little bit earlier than it should have because I think they put it out on YouTube before it came out on Twitter, and well, I got that notification just a little bit early, so somebody missed the gun, Chad. But that's what we got to talk about. So we're obviously going to touch on the spec map a little bit towards the end, just about all the changes. Not much as the houses, but there's a couple of scare zones on there now and a couple new locations that we're going to be working with. We have some stuff about our shirts we'll be talking about. And we'll be talking about just quickly the Premium Scream event. The tickets went on sale today. So we'll just kind of hit upon that. We have a lot of stuff to round up and just going to continue being a crazy, crazy podcast season. There's just so much stuff that's been announced so randomly. But tonight, I am drinking the ever elusive Shipyard Pumpkinhead. I found it in Publix. They were on sale.
Clearance, baby.
They are clearance. These definitely were behind a shelf somewhere.
Oh.
They don't taste it. I accidentally cracked it. But let's see. Let's see how off it is. It can't be that off, right? Because they wouldn't sell it. They wouldn't sell it.
I don't know, man. I mean,
you haven't tried one yet? It's your first time, first sip?
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, no, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Wow, yeah. It was the brand new Publix over on Daryl Carter had a little table, and they were $9. There was like a bunch of like Elysian beers
like
and
10 months old.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. I mean, I just imagine they have like a Pumpkinhead shelf, and they're getting ready to stock it for this season. They're like, oh, we didn't check behind this box. We got to get rid of this stuff before we get the new stock in. But no, not bad. It still has the decent taste. It's not as skunked. Again, if it was bad, they wouldn't be able to sell these things. I don't know. It doesn't have a date or anything on there, but yeah, it's good. 'Tis the season. It's always the season for me, but that's what I'm going through tonight. Does anybody else have any fun beers that they're working with?
I do. I actually have one this time.
Nice.
So I've got it's craft beer, but it's not obviously like some super low microbrew. It is a New Belgium Voodoo Ranger, but this one is the Fruit Force one.
All right.
And it's a tall boy. It's a Fruit Punch IPA. And I think that's kind of what was like, that's different. Like I've had Voodoo Ranger before. It is what it is. It does the job, but this, the name caught my eye, and then I saw that it said Fruit Punch IPA, and everything I've read so far says it actually nails the Fruit Punch flavor.
Okay.
So I can't wait to give this one a shot. It's a 9.5 ABV too, so this one could knock me on my ass. But I guess we'll find out. But
if we were inexperienced drinkers, it may knock you on your ass. But that looks cool. Just the can art looks good though too.
Blowing myself up.
The blue can really sold it.
Cool can.
I like Voodoo Ranger a lot. They do really good stuff. I like their hazy.
New Belgium is pretty well known. I mean, they do Fat Tires, their big one. Mm-hmm. But Voodoo Rangers, they're usually their IPA or their hazy IPA. They do have a West Coast, I think, as well. I didn't get that one. I got one other one tonight, so I've got another one for the next episode. But I'll drink it beforehand. But I forget what it is. It's not the Fruit Punch one. It's a different one. But I could smell the fruitiness when I was pouring it, so that's weird. It smells like Fruit Punch.
That's so like when these beers
it smells like Fruit Punch
stuff. Oh yeah.
and it tastes like fruit punch. That's so that's so strange because it doesn't
It's an
look.
IPA.
Yeah, it's an IPA. Doesn't say a whole lot about it. I know you can hear my kids in the background because they don't know how to be quiet. But it is all they say is it's a high flying fruit punch IPA landing at a powerful 9.5% ABV. Prepare for takeoff and hold on to your aviators.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's not super bitter. So like you would expect with an IPA to be like heavy on the bitter, at least on the back end. And there's a little bit, a very tiny hint of a bitter note to it, but otherwise it tastes like a fruited beer, which is weird.
Yeah, because you would expect that as like a sour, not a IPA.
Right.
Yeah, I know. So if you've had this before, let us know because this is really, really good. I've only got 2 people on my friends list on Untapped that have had it before, so it's got to be relatively new. And it's only got like 24,000 total reviews, so it must have just come out not that long ago.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, on Untapped, if you're looking for me, I can give you my number. I'm almost at 1,000 unique beers.
Ooh.
Can you believe that? 986. This is the 987th, so I'm almost there.
We'll have to get to the 1,000 mark.
I'm hoping that I can
episode.
Well, I'm hoping that I can get to 999 before October, and then I might just hold off until the event, and then hopefully there'll be something new there. We can celebrate it.
Number 1,000. I like that. All right. Well, let's get into the episode this week. So first, before we get into the actual HHN stuff, let's get into some Fear and Beer stuff. We have new shirt designs. We went to the parks and we took some pictures. We already have some of them printed up just to kind of test them out and make sure that they look good before we start selling them. So if you want to check out these new shirts, be sure you are up to date on all of our socials, our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I think Instagram and Twitter, it's going to go to automatically. Facebook, I'll manually put them there. But we're going to release or reveal a design every day, Monday through Friday. And then on Friday, they will all become available on our TeePublic page. And I believe they are going to be on sale. I believe they're going to be $16 a shirt, $22 for one of them, because one of them is double-sided. You get a front and a back print. But I believe it's going to be a Father's Day kind of sale. TeePublic does these random sales through the month, so you can kind of get them at a cheaper discounted rate. So all of these designs are made in-house. They are very fun. I like them. I hope you all enjoy them as well. But more importantly, we're going to be running a little contest throughout the week as well. So all you have to do to enter a contest, they're going to run this just on Instagram because I don't want to do 2 social media platforms and have to combine everything. So make sure you're following us on Instagram. All you're going to have to do is be following us, and you have to comment on the post tagging 2 people. Now you can enter as many times as you want. So if you tag, 10 people in 5 posts, that's 5 entries. And this is going to run the entire week. So you can comment on each individual shirt once a day or however many times you want to do it. And the winner, we're going to draw 1 winner, and that winner will get 2 shirts. And we'll draw that probably on Saturday once everything is kind of released. And then we will announce that on our socials over the weekend. So again, just make sure you're up to date on our Instagram so you can see all those cool new designs that drop, and you cop a shirt for us. And it's just so fun seeing you guys in the fog with those shirts. It blows my mind that people actually get them, but I got some cool designs that I'm really excited about. So I hope you are as well.
Mm-hmm. I do really like these ones. They came out really cool.
Yeah, and they printed really well as well.
Yeah, they did. I know it's kind of funky sometimes, the TeePublic, but these ones came out pretty good. So
yeah. So let's get into the actual announcement stuff. We were going to really talk about that spec map and just kind of talk about where stuff is and whatnot, but we kind of got the announcement we thought was coming. This is a little bit early. I thought this announcement was going to be next week. I didn't think we were going to get one this week. I thought second week of June, perfect time in between, all the originals and stuff like that. But nope, they hit us with it. They tweeted out today, "Make a sound and you won't last long. Monstrous creatures who can hear the slightest noises will hunt you down and silence you for good as the post-apocalyptic world comes to terrifying life. A Quiet Place." So it's finally official. It's legit. We also got a little 1.5-minute long video that was sort of like a little teaser for us as well, which again, kind of like what we talked about with the other teasers, doesn't seem like it's going to be necessarily tying into any overall theme or anything like that. It's just kind of that it's just what it is. It's marketing. It's not a ploy. I don't think we're going to figure out what was behind the doors. It's just kind of, that's it. But I don't know. It's official. We can finally stop speculating. So I guess initial thoughts on A Quiet Place being at Horror Nights this year for sure.
Thumbs down. Sadly, I just feel like I know I've talked about it before when we've speculated it and stuff like that, and we kind of had that feeling that it would be coming to the event, but I just feel like there's so many other properties that they probably could have had the opportunity to use if they looked into it, and I really think it's an interesting choice. Like, if you were to ask me for IPs even like later on in the years at Horror Nights, I would never think they would choose like A Quiet Place. Like, maybe it was like easy for them to partner with, to get, or because it was the Universal picture, but just an interesting choice all around. I think maybe I'll enjoy the house. I don't want to hate on it too much. Maybe I will, but I feel like this will kind of be like The Last of Us, how it was for me last year, and I ended up only doing that house once, which, well, no, we did it for the Unmasking the Horror Tour, which I actually enjoyed it more looking at through that, but yeah, not too excited for A Quiet Place.
You want my opinion on it?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think as down on it as Jamie is at the moment, but I also haven't watched the release trailer yet for it either, so I don't really know what they did with that and if it really gives you anything other than this is what this is. But
no, it's
two
people.
Cool.
It's two people in a laundromat that are deaf, and they have the same thing, kind of like with the movie, the
processor.
Yeah, it starts giving that real high frequency pitch, and there's people running in the streets. They slowly get down there. You see a quick shot of the creature, and it's a girl hiding like underneath the table. It's a pretty cool little teaser. So it's interesting, but it doesn't give too much away.
I think that when we started speculating earlier in the year, and we kind of thought we were throwing out ideas like, is this something that's possible? I know that there was some speculation already kind of going on that like, hey, this could be a thing, especially with the new movie coming out this summer. And I'm pretty sure that when we first started talking about it, I wasn't like super wild about the idea, but I do think that something like this gives Universal Orlando a chance to like flex its muscles a little bit and kind of give us some unique, what would you call it? Like set pieces or ideas or
IP.
some.
It's a tricky IP.
It's definitely different. I mean, so far it's I think one of the more unique houses they've announced outside of maybe Monstros or the museum, but even those two are kind of like, we've seen stuff similar to that before. But I mean, is it the most exciting IP they could have picked? No, but at least it's not necessarily like something we've seen 3 or 4 times. It's definitely something that's a little different. There are going to be some things, post-apocalyptic. We've seen this a million times, but I think at least there is a unique aspect to this that isn't just post-apocalypse. It's it's the whole idea of you have to be quiet. So I said it before on a previous episode. I hope that they play with the idea of silence in certain ways. Did mention it before that there was that part of, I believe, the Hill House that it was kind of like super dark, and they must have used deadening material, and it made it sound really, really quiet. So I'm kind of hoping that we get something like that. I think Nick and I have said it before too, where you get that scare actor, they kind of go shh, like, and they kind of jump out of nowhere to do that, and that gets you things like that. So we'll kind of see where it goes. I just hope it doesn't necessarily become one of those things where they really don't do anything unique with the house, and it's just, let's just fill it with a bunch of the monsters and say, hey, look, it's the monsters. And that would ruin it for me, because the whole magic of the first 2 movies was that you really didn't see the monsters very often, and if you did, it was so fast or so quick and so out of nowhere, out of the left field, that you aren't expecting it. If it's going to be just nothing but, hey, here's just monster, it's not going to do it for me, because it's like, all right, cool, a generic alien killing people. Yeah. Not super wild about that. I do have a feeling this is probably going to be like the Last of Us house, in the sense that there's going to be constant lines for it. And it's going to be one of those, hey, look, recognize this, recognize that. And that could be hit or miss depending on the property and whether or not you're a fan of it. So I know I'm kind of going to cautiously go into this one without too much pre judgment on my part, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sort of like in between both
Sorry
of you.
for the noise.
I love these movies, but again, I think I said it on Twitter where I was just like, I really like these movies, but never once was I like, oh, this is a good HHN house.
Exactly.
It's a very interesting pick because while they are very well received movies, the new one is putting it into like the zeitgeist and the current day media right now as well. But I mean, had the new movie not come out, I don't think we'd be getting this one as a house right now because it's been so far removed from the releases. Unless this was something that they've like really wanted to do and had it circled on the calendar for a while, like somebody in Universal Creative is just like, I really want to take a stab at A Quiet Place. But it does give us a little bit of a different description online. It says, silence your screams if you want to survive the terrifying post-apocalyptic world. Like the Abbott family, you must keep quiet as you travel from the farmhouse to the woods to the foundry. As soon as you make a sound, monstrous creatures who can hear the slightest noise will hunt you down and silence you for good. So it does sort of reference that we're going to be going through the first two movies, essentially. Now, I don't know if it'll start like day one, like if it'll start with the invasion, I guess is the way to put it, but we're definitely going to be following through some of the scenery of the first two movies, being that it's mentioning the farmhouse and the foundry and stuff like that. But like I said, these were very well received movies. It's weird how we've hit this comedian decides to start writing a horror movie trend where you have Krasinski, who just came out of nowhere and started directing and writing this, and Jordan Peele obviously with Get Out and Nope and Us. And then you have, Danny McBride even went from comedy to horror and was writing the Halloween trilogy, that new stuff. But on Rotten Tomatoes, A Quiet Place has a 96 from the not the audience, but the whatever they're called, the
critics.
Reviewers, the critics. Yeah, they have a 96 from the critics and an 83 from the
good.
audience. And then the sequel has a 91 from the critics and a 92 from the audience. So these are very well received.
It's a well received movie. Like, people like this movie. So, and there's a reason why they picked it, because it's a little different and people like it. It's not like it's a movie that nobody likes or there was very low reviews on or whatever. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just curious because, like we said, they're well received, but I'm curious about how well known it is. There's a difference between received and popular, and I'm just curious.
That's why it's so weird to me. I really didn't, sorry to interrupt you, Nick, but I just really didn't think. I was like, are people like into A Quiet Place like that? Like, is it really going to be that big of a draw to where that's going to be like the kind of how you were saying, Seamus, the lines for Last of Us the previous year? So it's just weird to me.
Yeah, they also dropped some merch today too, from preview merch. So they have it just says A Quiet Place, and it's got the person doing the symbol with the red. It looks pretty cool, but it's got the 3 slashes through the middle. But then on the back, it just says in like very basic text, rule number 1, don't make a sound. It's just like, oh god,
at least it's not never go alone or whatever.
Yeah,
don't scream.
Oh, the door slamming in this house, man.
A Quiet Place.
Let's also keep in mind too that this is the first IP they've released. So my thought is that if they were planning on this being like the big number 1 IP, why wait? Why not wait and release it kind of as like your like this is the final announcement. This is the big one. I feel like that might have at least one other bigger IP that we're waiting on, and it could just be Ghostbusters, and maybe that's what it is, because I would assume, and we're going to get to the spec map, but I would assume at this point Ghostbusters is pretty much a go.
Yeah.
So it very well could be that just that's the big one, and they're waiting to do that one next or last or whatever. But if they had already released the other 3 IPs and the other 3 IPs were okay, that's cool, and this is like their big one, I would probably be a little more on Jamie's side. But I think because they haven't really released anything else yet IP wise, I'm still holding out hope that there's at least another one big one that might make more sense. But again, I don't want to be like, yeah, this is going to be rough, because you're right. I think you both are exactly on the money when it comes to like, this is not an IP that you immediately think this is going to be a great attraction. Like this is going to like make sense in that world. So it could go either way. This could be like a lot of those originals where this is either going to be really, really good or it's going to fall flat. And I don't think you're ever going to find people dog it too much just because I think they are fans of it. I think there's more fans of this than you realize. I mean, that's why they're making a third movie, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
But sorry. Yeah, I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
It does have an audience. It does have an audience.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you're right. They're making a third movie. It's clearly still very well received and popular. One cool little thing that I did see is that they will be utilizing ASL with the characters in this house.
Oh, very cool.
So I'm curious if it's something that's going to be taught or casting based off of if they've known that or not. So I'm curious how that will play into the whole, like, you know,
I
we
would
were
imagine
talking about we were talking about the factor, you know, the shushing, but now it's like, is it going to be such a complete silent house that this characters are simply just signing to us?
Yeah. And the problem too, that brings up another point. And again, this is just my observation of the human race. And, you know, if this relies on people being quiet, no one is, you're never going to have a time when you go through this house where people are actually going to be like, yeah, let's actually like let's do what we're supposed to do and kind of be quiet when we're going through it. Yeah, they're all going to be, you're going to be going through it and you're going to hear the same old, like, the balls, these nuts, and people just screaming stupid shit because kids are stupid and kids do stupid things. So you're never going to get a chance. I mean, maybe like later at night where it's like, if you can kind of get a last run through before the park closes and there's nobody in it, just you and a few other people, you probably get that. But like if they're expecting the crowd to like be quiet, literally,
that's
to
a
like
tough ask.
for it to be an effect, it's not going to happen.
No.
And I wish it wasn't the case, but it's like going to a movie on opening night and pretending like people aren't going to freaking scream and yell and talk and be just general assholes the whole time the movie's playing.
Yeah. No, that's kind of my thoughts as well. I think they know that because I mean, the object is to scare you. So people are going to be screaming. So I think just in storyline, it's going to be like, oh no, you should be quiet. But at the end of the house, I think we're all just going to die. Like, cause
obviously that's
quiet,
the whole kind of point. Yeah.
But so any final thoughts on A Quiet Place before we mosey on to the next subject?
Let's mosey.
All right. Premium Scream Night tickets are available as of today. And they have not sold out yet. Are we surprised that they're not sold out?
No, not at all.
No.
Okay.
Especially looking at all the discourse online about it, does not surprise me one bit that it hasn't sold out.
No.
Because people can't. Unfortunately, the loudest people are those that generally are the most negative. So unfortunately, it's just going to be much of negativity about it. I actually kind of, I don't want to use the word respect, but I give them credit for trying something different. Yeah, it sucks that you don't have $350 laying around that you can go and do the grouped entrance into the houses, and you can't do some of the free food and this, that, and the other. Like, I understand, like, it's disappointing that it's kind of expensive, but how else did you think they were going to limit the number of people that can come to this?
Yeah.
Like, they weren't going to say, oh, we're going to limit it to 10,000 tickets sold or whatever. They're going to say it's a lot more money because we want to limit how many people can go to it for that very reason, and make us a few extra bucks when we're testing out the food. Like, the fact that they're actually opening this up to the public and at least letting you have a chance to do it, like, I think that's pretty cool. I don't know why we're gonna dog it. Like, you know, they're just money greedy. They're money hungry. They're a business. They're a theme park, as theme parks do. Like, they charge things at a certain rate. I mean, my question for a lot of people would be like, at what price to you is reasonable? Because as far as I'm concerned, the idea that you get to go in, this very, I assume there won't be that. It won't. Start again. I assume that it won't be super crowded.
I'd hope not.
You get to go into the house as a group rather than just a constant stream of people. You get basically food included and non-alcoholic drinks. I mean,
Parking if you don't have a pass.
Right, parking if you don't already have a pass. I mean, I can see why someone that doesn't care about the food, or just wants to go in and kind of be able to do the houses in that group. My point is like, I don't know what the draw is for someone that doesn't think that it's worth the price, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass, but I tend to do quite a bit. But for me personally, I don't think the price is that outrageous for what it is. I just the one thing I wish that they were like, we're going to give you a 2-drink limit, and we're going to you're going to be able to get 2 alcoholic drinks and test out some of like the special drinks that they do. Yeah. Other than that, I don't think it's that crazy. It's definitely expensive, but I don't think they weren't going to price this at $100 and say, here you go.
Yeah,
and then every jackass in Florida is going to go to it then at that point. Yeah, it defeats the purpose.
It's for us, it's a little unnecessary of a purchase.
Right,
but I don't think it's I don't think it's an outrageous price. Now, if this thing was $600, I'd be like, okay, that's a little that's a little ridiculous. But for everything you get, like you mentioned, you get pulsed entry, you get all 10 houses, you get food, you get beverage, you get parking, you get a souvenir credential, a souvenir lanyard, which for what it's worth, whatever. But I think for the price of all the stuff that you're getting, I think there's value there. I really do.
I think so.
And it's especially a day early.
Right. I mean, especially if you're not necessarily going to do a tour. Like, correct. That's the other thing too. It's like, I would counter and say, so is doing a $300 tour worth it more to you than the $300 premium night? Like, maybe it is. For some people, it might be. I think for us, maybe, because we get more out of the tour. But I don't know if everybody would think the same, because I look at it and go, for $300 something bucks, we should be doing all 10 houses on the tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's my opinion.
Yeah. What
I shouldn't have to pay you $500 to see all 10 houses, or sorry, not all 10, because you never get 10 houses, but all like the 9 houses in one tour.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or 2 tours or whatever.
My thing too, my biggest caution with this is that I have no idea what their idea of limited capacity is.
Exactly.
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
I don't want to drop 350 and then show up and be like, oh, well, it is limited, but we're pulsing, so this wait is still an hour.
30 minutes.
Well, and that's probably going to happen. I can't imagine this thing is so, I mean, because for every person bitching about it online, saying it's too expensive, they're just money hungry, there's going to be 5 other people, I keep whacking my mic, 5 other people that will pay the price and go. So it's like, it's still going to be crowded. Like, to think that you're going to go and spend $350 and you're going to walk in and be like king of the castle and be like, no, I'm all alone. Like, it's not going to happen. Like,
I have a chair.
There's going to be a million people there.
And if you're doing, sorry, go ahead, Seamus. I didn't want to.
No, go ahead. Please.
I was just going to say, no, it's okay. I was just going to say too, and if they're doing pulsing as well, you got to think that the people that are getting these tickets, there's going to be couples, a person by themselves, 3 people. Yeah. It's not going to be, every group's going to be a big group. So it's definitely still going to take a little bit to pulse everyone through the houses, I would assume.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're still going to sell a decent-ish amount of tickets.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, maybe it'll be like a 15-minute for each of the houses, maybe something like that.
Nothing. Yeah, I would think that they'll do a good enough job of kind of like grouping the, like saying, let's say, we're going to send 15 people in at a time. They'll do a decent job of keeping that number somewhat close.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's my next question too, then, I guess. Do you think it's pulsed, like you said, Seamus, by amounts, or do you simply think it's like, hey, how many in your party? 5? Okay, you go.
No, I don't. I think it'll be, we're sending 10, 15 at a time.
Regardless.
Just like they do with rides. It'll be like, how many in your group? 5? All right. I need a group of 2. Like, that's what it'll be. I don't think they'll do. They won't, because the thing is, like, say we went and it's like, oh, it's just the 3 of us. They're not going to say, all right, we'll send those 3 in and then wait. They'll stick us with another group of 5 or 6 or whatever, and try to keep it around a certain number.
Yeah, so that way you still get the scares, but it's still maximizing that push through.
I think the whole idea is just basically that they're just trying to make it feel kind of like a local haunt, one of those type of local situations, because that's kind of what everybody remembers in a lot of the or thinks about when you think about a local haunt. It's different. It's not the same stream of people just constant. Jesus Christ, I'm all over the place tonight. My Italian's coming out. And for those that don't know the joke, if I'm talking with my hands, that's an Italian thing.
Hitting my mic.
But yeah, I think that's kind of what they're going for. I think they're trying to get that local feel. So
what do you think is a reasonable time? So say you spent this money and you went, what is a reasonable time in like a wait for a house, you think?
I wouldn't want to.
It depends on the house, right?
I wouldn't want to wait longer than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I would say 20, 25 minutes.
25 tops.
I could see like a bigger IP, maybe 30, 35 at max 40.
Yeah.
But again, it's not one of those things where like they're going to wait for an entire group to go through the whole house.
Correct.
It'll be like group goes in, 25 seconds, next group goes in, 25 seconds, next person. It's not going to be
reset and that's it.
Right. So it's just it's what it's going to do is it allow you to not be that person that gets caught at the end of every scare. Like how many times we've talked about this the last couple of episodes, like how many times do you go through a house on a regular night and you miss everything because you're the last person that
on time
happens to be walking past the scare, and that's great for us because we go all the time. So like we'll go through a house 3 or 4 times and we'll be like, damn, like that was a better run than the last time because you got everything.
We always try to rotate too. I feel like with all 3 of us, we're like, okay, who wants to go first? And
right. I mean, but for someone that is coming in to go through to go to the event 1 or 2 nights for the season, and they just get an unlucky shitty night where they miss everything in every house they go through. This might be something worth going for. The problem is with it is, I think for those types of people, a lot of them don't live local. They're not in Florida. Mm-hmm. So they're going to come all the way down here just for that opening weekend to do that night. Maybe they do that in addition to 1 or 2 nights on opening weekend.
Yeah.
I could see that being ideal, but then again, do you want to pay for 2 nights, 2 single ticket nights or whatever?
That much money too, an extra
and the $350 for, I mean, is that worth it to you? Again, with everything included, it might be.
Yeah. I think it would be. The other thing too with those people that are traveling, they're not all like us. It's not the end of August and they're itching to do Halloween stuff. Right. A lot of people want to travel in late September, early October to get in the feel versus us. We're just like chomping at the bits to get in August. I know it's not Halloween time, but it is for us. But that's really what I think. Our thoughts on the premium Scream Night. I'm not super surprised it's not sold out yet. The biggest thing is something that we won't know, right? I don't know, and we won't probably know what their number is. Of
I guess, I mean, for me to just my final point on it would be, 1, if you don't think the price is reasonable, then just don't pay it and don't go. What are you missing if you don't go? Right? Like I get that, like you're upset that you would like to do it. It's just too expensive for you. But at the same time, you really can't
fault anyone.
Complain at the same time, because you're still going to pay, almost $300 for the freaking Fear Pass. You're going to pay probably $20, $30, $40 in food every night you go, not including alcoholic drinks, whatever you pay for the drinks and stuff like that. So like, you're still going to spend money in the event.
Oh yeah.
So like, complaining about a premium night that you can't go to, like, I understand being upset about that, but like, just maybe be careful, like, dogging the company that much.
Yeah, right.
I mean, like, it's Disney does the same thing. I get it, but like, at the same time,
it is what it is. They're here to make money.
It is what it is. I mean, they just saw an opportunity for something that they were going to do anyways, to give the public a chance to come in early and do an early premium night. And if trust me, if this works for them, and I think it will, and they make an extra $20,000 in the first weekend just off of these ticket sales or whatever it is, and maybe I'm lowballing by a lot, but like, let's say they make a bunch of extra money, they're going to do it again.
Oh yeah.
And maybe even add a night or two.
So yeah, multiple days, or they'll add it during the week or something like that.
Right. So, I mean,
I like it. I mean, how long have we been asking for them to do something different? This is different.
Well,
just
I think
because
I,
it's
thi- I think
pricey,
it's I think for most people, the different to them would be at a house or at a scare zone or something along those lines. Not so much at another like
night we don't
cost
go,
prohibitive night or something like that. But
I get it. It's for people that go. It's a fun thing. It's really risky for me on the first attempt at this. But if I hear nothing but good things and it doesn't jump up a crazy amount, I might be tempted to do it next year, as long as I know it was successful.
I'm tempted.
For me, I would pay a premium price just to have the pulsed entry because that's
biggest
different.
Thing.
Like that's different.
You get to experience every house how it's supposed to be.
Right, exactly, and that to me is almost worth the cost of entry just in itself, in and of itself. Again, that is my opinion. So don't come at me and be like, "Well, you're defending them and this, that, and the other." Oh, you shouldn't be defending them. No, I get it. You don't think it's worth it. That is totally fine. Don't go.
Yeah.
But I personally, if I wasn't already paying for the frequent fear pass and all the other stuff that I'd be paying for the rest of the season, I might do it.
Yeah.
Shit, if I had $350 laying around, I might do it anyways.
Just put $15 on a really big ping pong parlay like me, and you might be able to.
Yeah, you could do that. That would work.
But yeah, that's what I think. Jamie, final thoughts on the Screamium event?
You guys kind of said it all, but I agree too. I think it's a really good, for what it is, I do think it's a good deal, and I don't think it's too crazy. Definitely out of some people's price ranges. I mean, mine included right now, but like you said, if we weren't getting the frequent fear pass and possibly doing Express and like the other things, then I would definitely look into getting it. I think it's a really good idea because
I mean, even if
I feel like that's the one thing people say too. No, it's okay, Seamus. I was just going to say, I feel like the one thing people always say too is just the conga lines with the houses, and I think this is they want to see, maybe like you said too, Nick, maybe they'll add more nights in the future, like for next year or something, if it works out well, if people really like this. And I love trying all the food anyway, so I think this would be a good way to try some of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a good thing too, where you can just be just splurge. You don't have to eat the entire thing. Sample everything. Take a bite and throw it away. Who cares? They're practicing and you paid for it.
But it's not just that too. Like, you may not be apt to pay for something on a regular night, but because they're offering it like included in the price, you'd be more willing to try certain things. Like every year there are things that I don't try because I just don't feel like paying $10, $12, $15 for something that I'm not sure I'm going to like. But if I was given this opportunity and I could actually try things, I think, again, that's also part of the price that I think makes it worth for me. It's like, I know that I'm not going to buy every food item or major food item anyways. And if they have a lot of the options available, I'd be more apt to try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I again, this kind of brings back to other things that I wish they would do. I wish they would do a food voucher or something like that, where you can pay a certain price and then you get certain items on that voucher. I wish they did that. I wish they did like a meal plan at Disney, but like a snack plan for Horror Nights, something like that, where it would include certain things, not everything, but a lot of the things.
Spend $100 and get 11 items or something.
Right, exactly. Like or even like in addition to your freaking fear pass, like you want to add on to it. All right, well, for an extra $100, you get a meal voucher that includes so many nights or whatever or something like that. I wish they would do something along those lines, but now I'm getting off track. But
all right, let's talk about the Horror Night Nightmare Speculation Map version 3. Now, this is the part of the season where typically we don't have this many announcements, so we're still sort of speculating. So now it's less so speculating the properties themselves and talking about the placement of them. So we're not going to spend a bunch of time talking about stuff like Sweet Revenge or the museum, but more so where they are in the layout of this. And then we'll get into the smaller things that have been added to this map. So on Speculation Map version, let's go with 3, we have at Soundstage 23A, which is where Blood Moon was last year. They have Monstros, the Monsters of Latin America. On Speculation Map 2, that is also where they had the South American style icons. So that house has not changed. It's staying up front, and I think that's a good spot for it into the soundstage. That's gives them enough spot, size and space to work with. I believe in Hollywood this was in a tent, so it was a much smaller one. I think being in the soundstage gives them that much more room to work with the environment, which I'm excited about. I think that they can do crazy things with this house. And hopefully this house will break the curse of, very underappreciated originals. Because we had with Blood Moon there, the wait time was just never even close to what it should be.
I know.
And
It's just a shitty location. I mean, I maybe not so much for the house, but like the queue is the start for the queue is in such a hidden, shitty location that I feel like if it wasn't there, the line would be longer.
Yeah, it kind of gets hidden by.
It does.
This,
and it's pushed way back too. Like you don't even see it right up front. They need to move like the what's it called? Like whatever it's like right up front. So
those stanchions.
Yeah, the stanchions.
The signs or whatever it is. Yeah, it's a tricky spot, but I'm excited for it to be in a soundstage. I think that's a property that should be in a higher area, higher roof, whatever it is. I think that they can work a lot with that stuff. So any more thoughts on Monstros being in a soundstage?
No, I'm excited. I think this house is going to be really good. And I think it's climbing my hype list.
I am very excited for it. I think it's an interesting placing though, because I had mentioned before in like the walkthrough videos of Hollywood, they had a really cool like facade on the outside of it. And I know for these, the entrance is like fairly small for that little back way through Red Rocket. So I know they're not going to do really any sort of facade kind of thing. So personally, I would have liked to see this in a sprung tent.
So you say like an outdoor facade?
Yeah.
I mean, I again, I don't want to
like that for like the entrance of the house.
Yeah, just playing devil's advocate. I feel like with the sound stages, they usually do some pretty diesel facades indoors because they have the space for it. So I'm excited to kind of see what they can do with this in that way. I think that, and again, I know we're not really getting into like our speculation about the house, but just with this one, I feel like that they're going to be able to do a lot of different things with it here than they were able to in California, and maybe try some different things too. So hopefully that like whatever you saw there, there'll be some pretty diesel entrance facades.
That's a good
when
point
you walk
too.
into the house. Yeah.
They have those like exterior/interior facades. Like you think of like Blood Moon, like nothing was outside of the house, but like the house didn't really start until you walked into that first room and you got the whole entrance and stuff like that. Dead Man's Pier, you walked in and it was the whole, I would count that as like a facade before you enter the bar and you walk through the town tavern.
For sure.
It's weird because it's an interior thing, but it's kind of the exterior facade of the quote unquote house layout, I guess.
Yeah.
So we'll move along to Soundstage 22, which is where I believe it's pointing similar to where Exorcist Believer was. Now that has changed on Spec Map 2. That is where they had the female monsters rumored to be. And now that is the Lantern, which is the assumed Insidious movies. So moving from monsters to Insidious, they had previously Insidious in one of the sprung tents and now it's in a soundstage. Deservingly so. It's tricky because we're going to go through these next three, but the three IPs are bang, bang, bang right next to each other up in that front portion. So
yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Is Insidious something that you think like needs to be in a soundstage, or do you think it would work better in a where it is?
I think you could do it in either. Again, I'm not the biggest Insidious fan. I like the first movie, but I've never really sat down and watched the other ones, so I can't speak to what
you got some homework.
What would need to be in it. Yeah, I gotta watch some movies. I know, but I do think that like, yeah, I think any house can benefit from being in a soundstage, to be honest with you. And I know that I've come to appreciate what Universal is capable of with the sprung tents, because the tours that we've gone on the last 2 or 3 years have completely opened my eyes to like what is possible and what they can get done and what they can make happen. Descendants of Destruction from 2 years ago blew my mind with how much they could put in a sprung tent, which is not that high. Like, yeah, puppet theater even. Like what they can pull off in a sprung tent is almost as good as what they can do in a soundstage. So I don't necessarily think that it needs to be one or the other. So for my opinion, I don't think it matters. I think the reason they're all here is because their IPs this year are pretty weak. At least as far as we can tell. And they need to have these all front and center to like draw the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
But
like, look, here they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think Insidious, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be in a soundstage. I think it can work pretty well in a sprung tent because I think a lot of it is very, trippy, spacey, in your face kind of stuff. There's not any like large scale stuff that I deem necessary from Insidious, but I love the franchise. I'm excited that's coming. This is probably my most hyped IP between the three. Technically, is really all we're working with. But Jimmy, any thoughts on Insidious being in a soundstage versus a sprung?
Well, this is going to be my only saving grace for the IP, so I'm ecstatic that it's in the soundstage if we get it, because I feel like, not that I say I don't feel like it belongs there, because like you said, and Seamus said as well, that they could still do a lot of good work, obviously, with the sprung tents and the amount of immersiveness that you feel in there and the amount of space that they make it seem like it has. But I think that it'll be nice to have it, because you said this is where the Exorcist Believer was, right? And that spot right there.
Correct.
That's what it looks like. Yeah,
I think that's the perfect spot for it. Honestly, when I had pictured it, hoping when we were speculating and stuff like that, I would imagine it right there, just because I think on the TV screens that they have out there on the stage and stuff, where they do like Grad Bash and whatnot, I think they're going to use that for some of the film clips or going through the different movies, Blumhouse stuff and whatnot. So I think this is a good spot for it.
That makes sense. I hope they use those screens. I feel like they haven't really used them too much in the last couple of years.
Last year they were always broken, kind of.
Yeah. But all right, let's move along up to Soundstage 23B, which is where we had Stranger Things last year. And this is the same symbol as it was on Spec Map 2, except it is frozen this time.
Yeah,
thus alluding to Frozen Empire, the newest of the Ghostbusters. What do we think about that change?
I'm gonna pull the Jamie on this one. I'm not feeling it. I haven't watched Frozen Empire yet, but
me either.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not big on the whole like Memberberry thing when it comes to like movies. And I feel like a lot of these movies right now, and I actually watched a really good YouTube video, and I feel awful. I forget the name of it. If I can remember it, I'll mention it at the end of the episode. But someone that does like analyzations of movies and things like that, and this one was about the Marvelization of cinema now, because how everything has gone the way of Marvel and how they make those movies. And there's something like, I don't know if they call it nostalgia bombing or this, or I forget what the term was that he used, but it's the idea that it's the sake of nostalgia, just for nostalgia purposes. Like there's no, like a lot of these movies come out now and it's just like, remember this, remember that. Yeah. Remember this when you were a kid? You liked it, right? As a kid, you like it now, right? And we're gonna make millions of dollars off of you. Like that's what I feel like a lot of this stuff is, and that's
all of it is at this point.
I know that, and again, remember, I'm the snob here. Like I'm the snob on the podcast, so like I want cinema. I don't want necessarily just. I don't want necessarily just. I don't get me wrong. It works when it works, and I like it when it works, but
it doesn't always work.
I think personally, I don't want Ghostbusters at all at the event, but if they're going to have it, I'd rather them kind of just do a mashup of the first couple of movies and maybe throw some stuff from the new ones. But this is specifically Frozen Empire. Just, I wasn't wild about the movie, and I'm not wild about the house. So, and I know I'm going to be in the minority here, so that's fine. Everybody can hate me. It is.
No, I don't think you are. I think this one is. I don't think anybody is like over the moon ecstatic about this. I know I'm not, and I don't mind. Frozen Empire was okay. We'll talk about that on a later episode. Maybe we'll do a deep dive on the movie itself. But I like Ghostbusters franchise. I really liked Afterlife. I thought that was a perfectly well done kind of requel, or however you want to do it. But Frozen Empire kind of lacked heart. It just lacked meaning. It was very convenient of a story, and and it was pretty much exactly what you were saying. The commercials were like, "Ray, remember Slimer? He's in this. Remember the dogs? Their dogs are in this too. Paul, look at Paul Rudd's back, and he's going to do the thing with the dogs, like the first movie. You remember that one?" And that's right. Kind of what it turned into, instead of actually making a new fun story. So I don't know. Again, much like A Quiet Place, this movie, when I saw it, I was never like, oh, this makes perfect sense for a Horror Nights house. No, it doesn't. But we'll probably get it, and I get it. Ghostbusters, the brand name itself is big, but
this definitely fits. I mean, this lends itself to a horror attraction. So, like, unlike The Quiet Place, this is actually something that makes a lot of sense because. I mean, there's just it's just this character and that character and this character and that character. It's kind of like Stranger Things. Like Stranger Things lends itself to a haunted house because there's just so many things you can do. There's so many set pieces you can do. Doesn't have to be anything crazy or unique. It's just Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Jamie,
please tell us what we're wrong.
Did you come and see the new one with me or no? Frozen Empire.
Me or Seamus? I didn't go see
You.
it. No, I still haven't seen it. No,
I haven't either.
No.
I haven't watched the movie in its entirety.
There's a lot of movies I need to catch up on, especially this being on there. I haven't seen.
Well, you have some homework to do.
I know. I was gonna say I haven't seen a second Quiet Place either, and then I think I fell asleep rewatching the first one. But I think I had said before that I never watched it, but like 30 minutes into it, I was like, pretty sure I've seen this before. So it just wasn't very memorable for me, clearly. But no, I'm not going to disagree with you at all, Seamus. I'm going to poo-poo on the Ghostbusters too. Yeah, kind of like you said, it just really doesn't, it just plays that nostalgia factor, which, don't get me wrong, I love nostalgia and all that kind of stuff, but Ghostbusters was never really my thing. I've seen the first one. I think I've seen part of the second one only because of Nick, and I've never really watched it in its entirety myself. But I think I'll have a better idea of what I'll think about it if it is based off Frozen Empire after I see the movie. So I feel like I can't really say too much about it, other than, like I said, Insidious is going to be my only saving grace. I mean, I'm really not excited for either Ghostbusters or A Quiet Place. I don't want to sound like a hater because I'm usually the more positive one, but there's Horror Nights really didn't want to do it for me this year. They said, you know what? She had a good run last year. It's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of worry that this year is going to be weak or weaker than we've had in years past, and I feel like they're going to use the new theme park as an excuse. Like, we're not going to sit here and pretend that Universal Studios is hurting for money, right? Like, we're not going to pretend like they really can't afford to do Horror Nights full bore this year because they're trying to get a park open. Like, we all know that's crap, right? Like, that's not like that. It's a convenient excuse.
Yeah.
But I feel like the IP that they were really leaning into this year pulled out. They had to come up with something quick, and they know it's going to be a weak lineup.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. Let me put it this way: not that they know that it's going to be a weak lineup, but they're worried that it could be a little weak. And it I don't want to say it's weak.
The IPs are,
but it is definitely weak. At least IP wise. God, I can't talk.
The least appealing IPs.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's no massive draw, and I don't want to say that maybe there aren't people out there that some of these are massive draws. I'm sure there's a ton of Ghostbusters fans that are like, yes, we're getting Ghostbusters again. So, like, I'm not poo-pooing this in the sense that I don't want you to be happy about it. Like, I hope you are, because to me, I hope someone looks at this map and goes, I'm so pumped, because I like it when that happens. Even last year, like, all the people that were pumped about dragons, like, I wasn't trying to make you all feel like shit. I thought it was stupid, but don't take what I think as like gospel. Like, what? If anything, I'm a fallen angel. I ain't no fucking saint. Like, don't take what I think or say as anything that should change how you feel about something. I hope you're happy about it. I'm just not over the moon about anything other than maybe most of the originals.
And I think too, like, even Ghostbusters fans, I don't think they are necessarily super excited for Frozen Empire because I don't think they really enjoyed it either as well. So it's a weird demographic.
We know how that demographic treated the soft reboot with the female characters.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
we know how they all how they all reacted to that. Females in my movie?
Yeah, how dare
you?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to be that way, but a lot of you people are like that.
So let's move on now to Soundstage 24A, which has changed on... Oh, no, it hasn't. So on Spec Map 2, it was the little Quiet Place logo, and it is, again, Quiet Place. So it seems like that is going to be Soundstage treatment, and that is on the left side, which I believe was Dragons. Dragons on
Yes.
the left side
I
last
think
year.
so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yep.
It was in that area. It was one of those two, but
Yeah. So I think Dragons up there. So a big sound stage for A Quiet Place. We talked about
Makes sense.
this. I think this is with the creature design. If they go big with it, they need the space to
yeah,
maneuver.
and I think too, with a soundstage, they can control the sound better.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not like in a sprung tent where you're kind of at the mercy of the elements because you know a tent's only so thick. Like you really can't control so much of the sound from outside. With the soundstage, you can definitely do a little bit more control of that noise.
So let's move along because we don't need to really talk on A Quiet Place. We talked about that up there.
Right.
This is a bigger change. So Soundstage 24B, where I believe Yeti Campground Kills was, on the previous map, that is where the little candy logo referencing Sweet's Revenge was. It has now changed to Triplets of Terror. They think that that's going to be sort of our first, not our first original, but you know that's kind of bookending those IPs up front. So Triplets of Terror also in a soundstage.
You happy about that?
I don't think it's necessary.
I don't think so either. I'm actually kind of bummed.
I think
If
that could have
that's what this
benefited
is.
in
I think it's
being
a
a
waste of a
sprung.
soundstage.
I think I'd rather
Sweets.
really there's 3 in the sprungs. Yeah, I'd honestly trade
Yeah.
that for anything else, any of the other
Sweets or
original.
Slaughter Cinema. I feel like either one of those two could have benefited from being in a soundstage more than Triplets
No.
of Terror. Because
Or
if
the museum or monsters.
in the museum, yeah,
You know,
I mean,
Universal Monsters.
yeah, I guess so. Well, I mean, keep in mind too that like, well, I guess those are all tents. None of them are in the.
So no
This is-
parade warehouses.
There's nothing in
No.
parade warehouses this year, huh?
So the other ones are all sprung tents and Fast and
Interesting.
Furious. So these are really the only big ones. So I'd be curious. This thing is not 100%. Triplets of Terror seems like a weird thing to be putting in the soundstage
It
compared
is.
to all
And I
the
know-
other ones.
And it's funny because we just went on a whole spiel about how like, we don't think it really makes a difference. I mean, I think that for the most part, Universal can do whatever they want. But I do feel like there is an aspect to the soundstage that you don't get with the tents. So although I think that they can pretty much do pretty much anything, I do think that generally a soundstage does benefit certain houses. I don't think Triplets of Terror requires a soundstage to be good if it's
No,
going to be good. I mean, it's just a bunch of like, you know, no name Texas Chainsaw slasher murder house, right?
People.
So like you
Yeah.
don't need to put that in a soundstage.
No.
Whereas Sweets, which is going to be a big factory set, so how do you make that work? Or museum, a big museum set, Slaughter Cinema. I mean, if you're going to do like the theater or
the
a
drive-in.
drive-in, like you would kind of need that tall space. But I don't know. I guess I'm just surprised that this is the one they stuck there.
Yeah.
And again, let's put it this way: this is still a spec map, so
Yeah.
none of this is like set in stone. So
These
don't
are gonna
take this as
change,
like.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, this might change.
I would say
although
so.
we are kind of getting
Closer
late
and
enough
closer.
in the season
Yeah.
where this is probably going to be closer to the real thing than we would typically let on.
So, Jamie, what do you think about Triplets of Terror being in the soundstage?
I do think it's an interesting choice in the sense that I do think that some of the other originals could probably lend better in that sort of a space. But it makes me think how the setup is going to be. I feel like they have a little something up their sleeve that maybe they do need this big space setting for whatever kind of facade or whatever kind of style setting that they're going to do with the house. So I'm interested by that. If this does stick in that spot, sorry, Nick.
Yeah. I'll say, so do you think this is like a town setting? Do you think it's like a backwoods setting? Do you think it's just in the house of the birthday party or whatever the hell it is?
I think it's going to be sort of backwoods setting. I do think it's going to be like I had mentioned before, similar to, I don't want to say similar to House of a Thousand Corpses, the house specifically, but kind of that backwoods barnyard style setting where you have the big house facade. You kind of, how you in Texas Chainsaw Massacre a couple of years back, you walked in through the gas station and it still had kind of like the outdoorsy sequence to it. So something along those lines, I'm thinking. And I'm thinking we're going to walk into their big house. And then
So what I
maybe
would
towards
hope-
the end, it would take us out.
I want
into
this
the
in like
woods.
a trailer park in the woods. So like
Or
if you
something like
have-
that, exactly.
If you didn't want to spend money to move the trailers from Campground Kills, you can repurpose them.
That's true.
So let's move along now to Fast and the Furious, which on Spec Map 2 was Unknown Original, and it has now changed to Major Sweets Candy Factory.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a sprung tent and Fast and the Furious, what do we think about sweets there?
This makes sense. Oh, in a sprung tent in Fast and the Furious? So is it not going to be set up the same two-part style how it was before?
There may be changes. I've seen or heard that it's making an adjustment, but there's a tent over portions of that when we're in the Fast and the Furious area. It's still in a tent.
Okay. So it is going to be split up, you think, still?
I believe that we still have that area.
It'll be split into 1 and 1 like they've done the last 2 years.
I don't think that part's changing, but there's still tents over there. Yeah.
Yeah, because that justifies my point a little bit. Because if that's the case, I think that this is a good house to put in that section, because I will think it'll start out in the factory setting before the kids turn after eating the crazy candy, and then the second sequence that you go through in the second part, I think, will be the aftermath.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted this in a soundstage. I think you needed this. I think you needed the. I went crazy. I think you need I think you need the scale for the factory setting. That's just for me.
I would agree that I think might benefit more from a soundstage, but I also am interested to see how they do the split, because usually the split plays into the house in some way. So, you might get like the first half of the house, which is one thing, and then the second half, which is something different. So I'm interested to kind of see how they do that. I'm hoping that maybe we do like, the first half is like, Mr. Sweets is just trying to run a candy factory, and then the second half, Mrs. Treats or whatever is like the true mastermind.
Yeah,
and she's the one that like fucks everything up and gives the kids the crazy shit, and they start taking over, or it's gonna be like a normal factory setting somewhat, and then the second half is like now the kids have taken over and they've slaughtered everything and slaughtered everybody.
Yeah, so, I am curious how they
there's
play
so
it.
much that go on here.
I always am curious to see how that whole split works. Obviously, I think that's where you're going to have a Major Sweets character talking to the crowd or what have you. But I don't know. I think I would have switched Triplets of Terror with this just to get Sweets in a soundstage, because I do want that scale of walking into a factory. Now, I guess you do get to play with the Fast and the Furious rides atmosphere a little bit, because it does look very factory-ish. It looks like a garage. It is a garage. So interesting. But any other thoughts about Major Sweets Candy Factory being up there in the Fast and Furious? Well, moving along. So now we are at Tent 3, which is one of the new tents, I believe. And previously on the map, they had the little popcorn, which was alluding to Slaughter Cinema. And now that is where they have Goblin's Feast in one of the brand new tents. I don't really know much to say. I think that this is a perfect tent style house. I don't think this needs the scale of a soundstage, so I'm glad that's over in the corner. I'm curious how much size they have to work in these new tents. I'm very excited to see the layouts of these new tents and the size of them.
Right.
Because everything I've heard is they've got a large scale.
Yeah, I'm wondering what's different. I would imagine that like they're better weatherproof. It's better weatherproofing too, especially after like the hurricane and stuff. So like they've needed to like change a little bit what they do and how to make the tents more secure. So I'm sure that has something to do with it. But yeah, is the size different? Have they changed the size? Have they made them taller?
They're rectangular instead of like those little circular, and they are bigger. I forget the sizes, but they are bigger, but it is just a straight square. So I'm curious how that's going to play in layout. Like, is it going to feel like a really long maze?
It might, because the thing is you've now got, like, you're not worried about, you're constrained a little bit more when it's like a circle tent or something that's a little bit not as square.
Yeah,
you keep saying like this, there aren't 90-degree angles, but with a more like rectangular square tent, you have more space to spread out and create more room. So maybe they will feel a little bit longer.
Yeah. So Goblin's Feast over in one of the new tents. Any other thoughts on that one?
Back to the outside facades. I'm interested to see what they'll do with this if they do it on these little tents here.
I mean, it kind of goes without saying. I mean, it kind of goes all the same for a lot of these. Like the tents are the tents. So I think that I don't think they can go wrong with any of these houses in tents. So we'll kind of see what happens. But like Slaughter Cinema, I know we haven't gotten to it yet, but like the outdoor may make more. It might give more opportunity to kind of play with that theme.
Definitely.
Being that it's a tent.
Yeah. So let's move now to Tent 4. Again, one of the other new ones. And it's interesting. It has both entrances over in that little corner where we would enter for, bugs or the MIB one. So I'm curious. So that makes sense having both entrances there. Like we mentioned previously, that when you do enter that way for bugs, there was that split right at the beginning for express and for standby. I think that's just going to be a split. One house is one house is the other house. And then as you go through the line and once you get closer to the house, that's when they'll do like a separate split for one house versus the other's express. So it makes sense walking down that way. So Tent 4 on Spec Map 2, they were speculating that was going to be where Insidious was, and it has now since changed to the female Universal Monsters, Bride of Frankenstein, what have you. So these are houses that typically play with scale pretty large. They're always in either the sound stages or the parade warehouses. So for them to put it in these new tents tells me they do have height and they do have the ability to scale in them, because they wouldn't put this property there if they were too limited, I would say. So excited to see this. I mean, kick off the new tents, essentially. This is a pretty decent lineup for those new tents over there.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Especially keeping monsters kind of towards the back over there, because it was nice having them in the parade warehouses, but it'll be cool to see it in a tent too, because I still think they'll be able to make it as extravagant, I guess I should say, as it was.
Yeah, I think something like this had to be in the back to get people to go to the back, to be honest with you.
I was going to say, they needed something too.
I mean, if you've got all three major IPs along that major corridor when you first come in the park, you had to have something in the back corner to say, hey, come back here too. There's other things back here. Because
we have more houses, I promise you.
Yeah, whether you like it or not, a lot of people don't come to this event for the originals.
No.
So...
And I feel like we're in the minority right now with that. I feel like a lot of people are excited for originals this year, or at least I feel like I am, being someone who really likes the IPs.
With them being announced first, it makes sense,
right? Yeah. And that too. I mean, we deal in the community, so a lot of the people that we talk to, a lot of the circles that we hang out in, they're going to be original people, anyways. I'm talking about,
which
Jane
I'm not hating,
and Jimmy Smith coming down with their 3 kids. Like, they're coming down because The Last of Us and Insidious are a house, they like coming to the event.
They come down to Horror Nights once a year. They don't follow stuff that's just built into their trip. Yep. 100%.
The Last of Us people.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
And that's what's really going to be interesting this year, to see crowd size. I don't think it's going to be that much of a drop off that we can tell.
No.
But I don't. But these IPs aren't drawing. I just don't see that there's a draw there. I really
No, you're right. But I think honestly, I think Ghostbusters is going to be it. Like, that's going to be the one that draws people in.
Yeah. All right. Moving along to tent number 2, which on Spec Map number 2 was that little black and white house, which kind of is a non-existent property at this point. But that is Slaughter Cinema 2 returning to where it was previously, where it was originally. The first Slaughter Cinema was at that sprung tent number 2. They did a cool little exterior facade with that one. They had cars parked out there. They had a screen projector put up. So I would kind of assume they would do the same thing for this one. It makes sense putting it back there. So exciting that this is kind of returning to its old stomping grounds.
Yeah, definitely.
I think so.
I'm excited to see this one.
Now that area is back open again too, so it won't be so won't feel so funneled when it comes to waiting for the houses, because the DreamWorks area is now open for business, as we would say.
Yeah, I'm excited to get Slaughter Cinema back. I'm excited that it's in the same spot, and I hope they do reuse some of those exterior props, because it's the same. I know people will want something different, but it's the same setting. We're going back to the Cary Drive-In. So maybe you could adjust the setting a little bit, but essentially at the end of the day, it's going to be the drive-in with the cars, and that's all you need for this kind of house. Now, our last house, tent number 1, originally on Spec Map 2, this was the little museum logo, and it has stayed put, the museum Deadly Exhibits. I think that for these sprung tents, I think the museum and Solar Cinema are pretty close to perfect picks. I would say Triplets of Terror should go into maybe one of the new tents, but I don't know if I would have put any other houses into these 2 sprung tents. Do you have any other houses? I mean, maybe Goblin's Feast would have worked good, but I
was going to say
think these are 2
Goblins.
pretty. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the only other one that I think like maybe would fit the bill of these sprung tents. But
I agree.
I'm very happy with these 2 being at in that spot, and it seems fitting
Mhm.
that that's kind of where we're gonna roll.
I think so too.
Any thoughts on the overall landscape of this spec map when it comes to houses before we move on to the other new little things that popped up?
I kind of like how it's spaced out, honestly.
You like
with
just all
with
the
the new
IPs?
layout, with the eyepiece up in the front. Yeah, I think it's nice. And then I mean, Triplets of Terror is right up front too, so I mean that's good for me, I guess. So
Right next to the
But-
tribute store.
yeah, I know, right? My favorite little spot to duck off into. But yeah, I think it's an interesting setup. Like we said too, talking about the Universal monsters and stuff like that. You do need something in the back to kind of alleviate all the originals and give something else to kind of split it up a bit. So I think it's a nice little split.
Yep. So let's get into scare zones. There are 3 unknowns, but there are 2 with little icons. So let's talk about those quickly. Over in, I believe that's Hollywood. I always mess up these names, but Hollywood strip where the Dark Zodiac was last year, there's a little sugar skull. So alluding to something in that Day of the Dead, Dia de Muertos style. We've had scare zones like that in the past. We've had the, whatever it was, Esqueleta Muerta, whatever, the skeleton style zone. We've had stuff like that in the past. We had a character in Graveyard Deadly Unrest that had that black light style painting. So is this something you kind of want? Do you think this is sticking around? What are your thoughts on possibly having this like Day of the Dead style zone over here?
I think it would
I'm
be
happy
cool.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think
it would
it'll be
definitely
fun.
match with Monstros being over there if it's going to stay towards the front where Blood Moon was before.
I mean, it kind of sucks that it's in that particular area because that
It
area
does.
is so dark. And I've said it before, like it's so hard to see what's going on in that scare zone. So if they light it the right way and it's vibrant and you can kind of like get into it, I think it's interesting. I like the Sugar Skull Day of the Dead stuff. I think that's fun, and it's different. Like it's not this again. It's not the same old. We're getting something a little different. So yeah, I'm down for it.
I'd
And
like
this
to
is
have
what I
it be
was. Go ahead,
that
Nick.
park
Sorry.
zone. I want it to be that festival zone.
Yeah.
And I was looking up too that they had. I'm looking it up right now. Actually, they had like a scare zone last year at Hollywood as well. I doubt they would bring 2 similar things back from Hollywood over here, but it was kind of that theming of the scare zone, or I think it was more of like the cryptid scare zone, kind of like the monsters in itself. Here, 1 second.
Yeah, it could be related to Monstros too. I mean, they're kind of like right next to each other.
Yeah. And if so, say it is related, would you want to flip this to that front zone that is directly in front, or are you okay with it having some space in between?
I'm okay with it having some space.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Because I feel like that front scare zone is going to be something super low key.
Yeah.
And there's only so much they can do there. And a lot of it's just like the big entrance sign is Halloween Horror Nights. And like they kind of fit something that fits the theme of the entire event there. But it's never been anything overly production heavy. Like I guess maybe Anarcade was like the biggest, like at least from
Of
what I
recent
remember,
years, yeah.
of recently, of the recent events. So I can't imagine they gotta go away from that and do something super out of left field. It'll be, something that encompasses the event as a whole. And I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of just stick with the whole, like, let's just put characters from all the different things in one area and say, hey, look,
Here's another
it's
zone.
it's just another scare zone.
Yeah. Did you find what that scare zone was from Hollywood?
I
Jamie?
did. Sorry. Yeah, it's called. Don't want to butcher this now. My Spanish isn't that great. El Terror de las Mamias. So, and this one was based on original Latin American urban legends, which was kind of how the scare zone was. So I think that'd be pretty interesting if they went that route of it. But I do really like the Day of the Dead, Dias de los Muertos stuff and stuff like that. So either way it goes, I think would be pretty interesting.
I'd rather have the Day of the Dead style than the urban legends cryptids.
I think so too.
Yeah, just from a costuming standpoint, I think it lends itself a lot better. And when it comes to lighting too, just light that whole place up with black light and give them a bunch of really colorful face paint and cool hats, and that'd be fun. The only other scare zone that has any sort of icon is San Francisco, and it looks like a little doll head or skeleton with red Solo cups on its head. I don't know. It's interesting. The first thing that I initially thought was something of like Japanese nature. Like it looked almost like creepy anime.
It does look anime-ish.
But it could be, creepy dolls. It could be something to do with Major Sweets being right there.
Oh, true. Good point.
But any thoughts? It looks very sinister. That's really what I take from it.
Yeah,
so,
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's tough.
I don't know.
I guess of the two, would you rather like a little creepy Japanese thing, or would you rather have like a creepy doll kind of thing, like toys?
I mean, well, I'm terrified of creepy dolls, so maybe like part of me is like, yeah, that'd be cool. But I also kind of like, I've said it before, I dig stuff that's from different cultures. So if you're gonna give me multicultural horror this year, I'm down. Like, give me different things from different places. Like, give me anime horror. Give me Dia de los Muertos. Like, give me all that different stuff. Like, don't give me the same old. So yeah, I'm good with either one. And I mean, chances are we'll be completely wrong. It'll be something completely different. But
yeah, it's early for scare zones. It really is. I don't put much stock into any scare zone speculation at this point. All right, the last little new thing on here, because of course it still has the Nightmare Fuel logo for the show. It still has the Death Eaters up there. But the last little new thing is the little black logo that looks like a little tie out in front of Mel's Dying, which I think we've all come to assume is the return of the Megan Horde.
It's Megan. Megan's coming back.
Wah, wah.
It's her ascot, her little like thing that she wears around her neck.
The necktie. Yeah.
I don't mind.
An ascot.
Yeah, I don't mind.
That's what it is, an ascot.
Yeah, it doesn't take away from anything. It's
I don't
not
hate it. I just wish they would be, as long as it's like more like strict, like give on a clock. Like I only saw it twice in the every time I went. Like I only got to see it twice total. And I think it's a fun little thing. It's a fun little event. I hate the movie, but like I think it's cute to have.
If we're walking around, we'll watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of actors that look like Megan and they dance. Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's a fun distraction for people. So bring it back, but don't make it one of those things where it's like, oh, you have to catch it because it doesn't happen all the time. Like, no, bullshit. Like, make it happen. Have it come
every
out
hour, just
every hour, every couple hours or whatever.
Yeah. Just say 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Whatever.
Right. Like, I don't know why. I don't know. I mean, unless because they made it seem like last year it was going to be like flash mob style where like they kind of just came out of nowhere and they just traveled around the park and like they would be at one point or somewhere else and it was always at the same place. So if it's gonna be there, just say, hey,
put a stage up,
7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 1. They're gonna have them come out. Like,
I would have them dance like where they normally dance current with like the Marilyn Monroe show. I'd have them dance right in front of Mel's, put a little stage up and whatever. People aren't really. People don't really fill that area. There's a lot of space there to work with, so you don't have to worry about crowds. All right, well, that is all of our talk on Quiet Place, Screamium event, Speculation Map version 3. Let's get into some call-ins before we drop off tonight because we have a couple call-ins we got to get to.
Call-ins?
So we have a couple, so let's get to these before we sign off for the week, and I'm sure we'll hear another announcement soon.
Hey, Matt again. Have you guys ever stayed at any of the hotels during Halloween Horror Nights? And if so, what's your go-to or favorite?
So, Matt, I have not. I don't think any of us have stayed at the hotels.
Not during Horror Nights. I have stayed at, and I'm forgetting names.
The Lowe's or Cabana Bay.
Cabana Bay. I have stayed at Cabana Bay twice now. We did it a couple of years ago, and just last year we stayed there with my in-laws. So we have done Cabana Bay. It is a nice hotel. I mean, from what it seems like, they're all kind of like, I don't want to say like low key Disney hotels. Like they're not quite on the same level as staying on property with Disney, but I mean they are what they are. They're fun theming. I don't know what they do specifically for Horror Nights. I know that like last year they had like the Chucky meet and greet, I think, or something along those lines, right? There wasn't some sort of Chucky thing or Universal Monsters thing. There was something
They
in the
usually have
hotel.
some photo op.
Yeah, it was like a photo op thing. Mhm.
Right. So there'll be some stuff, but they don't like completely like take over the hotel and make it Horror Nights esque. Because remember, I think there's still a lot of young families that stay at the hotel even during the Horror Nights season that aren't there for Horror Nights. They're just there because they're visiting the parks. So they don't go hardcore with it, but there are some like meet and greets or photo op type stuff. So yeah, I haven't stayed at all the other hotels, but Cabana Bay is a nice hotel. So if you're looking for something,
Right.
I would recommend Cabana Bay.
One of Nick and I's friends usually stay there opening weekend every weekend, our friend Chris at Cabana Bay, and they usually really like it. And I think it's probably one of the more affordable hotels, and it's
It is.
cool because
Yeah, I
they
would
do
say it is, yeah.
some of the Horror Night stuff, because I think like Aventura and Sapphire is really nice too, but I think they're a little bit more pricier, and I don't think they do any of the added on like Horror Night stuff.
Right, and there's that Lowe's hotel too, right? And isn't there a Hard Rock? Isn't like part of Hard Rock there's a hotel or something like
Hard Rock,
that?
Hard Rock too, which Hard Rock is nice if you're trying to be close in circumference, I guess, because I'm pretty
Right.
sure Hard Rock is literally like right next to the park where you could.
I mean,
either
everything
hop on the
outside
little-
of well, the two that not just built but were recently built across the highway.
the Endless Summer and Dockside.
The Endless
Yeah,
Summer.
yeah.
We actually did stay at Endless Summer too once. My wife and our kids. We did stay there once. So that's not a bad hotel either. But those two are not walking distance. I mean, you could walk if you wanted to, but like Cabana Bay and Lowe's and Hard Rock and like those, you're close enough that you could walk to the parks.
Yeah.
So I should say I've stayed at two different hotels there. But they're not bad. I mean, if you want to be close to the theme park, they're worth the money. There are a nice enough options that are off property that are cheaper, that if you wanted to save some money and you don't mind renting a car or at least taking public transportation, or if you don't mind walking quite a distance, you could walk, I guess, technically too. There's a bunch of hotels in that area, but his question was not about off-site hotels, so I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah, thankfully we live pretty close, so that way we don't have to really crash there. But I've visited Cabana Bay, and I like it. It's a cool atmosphere.
Sometimes it's nice to get out and have a staycation. You know what I mean?
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Let's get into our next one.
Hey guys, it's Matt in Cleveland. Quiet Place. Do they normally wait until closer to the event to distinguish a property? Or is that something, if it was day one, that they would hash out in that little trailer video? I'll be honest, if it's day one, I'm okay with it. But if it's like 1 and 2, don't really care for that. All right, bye.
I think you played those out of order.
Yeah, that's how they
I think he
came in,
sent that
but
first, and then the first one
Yeah.
second. But either way,
they sent in the other one like during the week, I think, on like last Friday. But this one came out after
gotcha.
the Quiet Place. But they're usually pretty good about being more upfront about it. I think if it was day one, it would have said day one.
yeah, it would have specified. I think.
And-
I think this is just going to be a quiet place in the world of the Quiet Place. I don't think it's specifically 1 or 2 when it comes to the movies. So I know what he's saying. Like, I feel like with the first 2 movies, you two alluded to it. There's not a lot in them that screams attraction. We've already talked about that. Day one seems like there might be more of an action feel to it. There's more action going on in the movies, so it would fit more to a house attraction. So I can see where he's coming from. So I think, Matt, I think you're right there. I think that, yes, I think 3, the third movie would be a better fit for a house. But they would have announced specifically, they would have called it like
Quiet Place
day one or something along those lines. I think this is just going to be kind of like in the world of A Quiet Place, not necessarily specifically the movies. I think it's just going to be like you're just a bunch of people that are somewhere on Earth when the aliens have attacked or have already taken over, and you have to kind of survive. So I don't know if that answers your question. If you should be pumped about that or hyped about that, or you should feel good about it. But I do think that it's going to kind of be, hey, this is the bad element. These are the aliens. This is what you're trying to do. You're trying to get out of this particular area. You're trying to walk from this place to this place or whatever. I know that like the description says something about like you're kind of following.
I think it mentions stuff from 1 and 2. So I think we're leaning more into scenes up from 1 and 2. Yeah, especially the farmhouse and stuff like that. Let's get into our next call-in.
Here in beer, Donovan again. Super stoked that we're getting A Quiet Place officially for this year. Honestly, glad it's the first 2 movies and not the new one, since we just had Last of Us, and I feel like day one would have been a little too like inspired by the like apocalypse thing. I'm kind of just done with that. Since it's an IP, are there any scenes in particular that you guys would like to see? And did you guys like the video that came along with it? That's it. Thanks again, guys. Keep it up.
So I made mention of this.
That's completely different than the first call.
Right? I made mention of this on Twitter on their official post, and it gained a good amount of traction. But I want to see that little kid with his shitty rocket just getting absolutely obliterated. I want to walk in and just see some kid just get destroyed. Fuck that kid.
Fucking full on football tackled.
Yeah, just it's like the linebacker commercials, just coming out of nowhere and just laying the hammer down on this little fucker.
They hire that like 5'1" actor who plays a really good kid and just gets.
I would just have a doll. I would have a doll on like on a rope and just have somebody behind there just ripping. This
I will say this about the Last of Us house. They've done a really good job in the past of making use of the bungee cord scares. Yeah. So I feel like this is a house where they can make use of that scare. Mm-hmm. Have like the alien scare actor do some of that stuff where like they lunge across a particular area or they kind of come out at you. I think this is the house that they can make use of that bungee scare in certain ways. So I do think that there's things that they can do in that particular sense. I don't really remember a ton of the scenes from the movie outside of like the
I
end.
Don't either. I don't remember any like memorable things.
There's not a whole lot other than like Nick was just saying, the kid getting annihilated on the trail because he's playing with a fucking rocket. But a lot of it takes place in the house. So I mean, her stepping on the nail and having to like suppress her screams because she's
walking on the sand.
Nailed her fucking foot. So there's not a whole lot of things that I can think of specifically.
I think the bottles, in 2, the bottles were sort of an alarm as to
good point. Yeah, that's something.
So I think that'll be sort of a scare. But I mean, Jamie, you said you kind of watched this movie a little bit the other day.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't tell you too much of the scene. I couldn't tell you too much of the scenes either. But yeah, I really didn't have too much on it. Oh, but mentioning the video, I did enjoy the little teaser video that they put out for it. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a little bit longer, which I like. So it was kind of like a little short movie kind of thing. I thought that was fun. But kind of not to go back, but alluding to the previous call as well, I think that all those like weird videos and stuff we were getting, like the little teaser videos and weird kind of stuff, it's the same little like scripture or whatever data writing that we had in those previous videos that they announced with the video today. So I think all those videos were definitely alluding up to not to The Last of Us, to A Quiet Place. So I think it makes sense now.
Are going to make that. Make that connection.
So I think it makes sense now that probably was what those little teasers were for, is that it was for this.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get into our last call-in.
Yeah, more than I thought they were.
The A Quiet Place house sounds epic. My only thing is, how are they going to keep it quiet? Because I think most of the fear and fun of that house would come from a silent environment, but super excited.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to fully get that. I just don't think it's possible.
I'm going to bring earplugs.
I think it's going to be hard to pull off, but if they can do it, I think, golf clap to them, because I think that's exactly what they have to do. He's exactly right. This house is not going to work unless they can control the environment enough to kind of give you the simulated silence that would be required of the house. What I think is funny is that all of these calls, it's going to epitomize the community at large. There's going to be a strong grouping of the community that's going to be like all about this house, and there's going to be a big, strong second segment of the community that's not going to be super about this house. It's not. I don't think there's going to be a singular, overarching feeling about it. Like I think that you're going to have people that like it, or people that don't. I truly do think that, and I think this is kind of showing us that that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's going to be tough to pull off, especially being in the sound stage. I think you're going to get some sounds from the other stages that it's kind of shared with. So it's going to be a tough little ask. So,
I mean, like I said, unless it's like they use a lot of that deadening material and they give you specific areas in the house where you're walking through an enclosed space where they can kind of control how much sound is let in.
Yeah. But let's get into real quickly horror movie of the week. Anybody watch anything interesting this week before we sign off?
Did I watch anything horror specific? That's a good question. I thought I did.
I didn't watch anything, but Nick,
I did.
Thanks to Nick having the PS5, I bought the new Killer Clowns video game that I've been playing for a little bit.
There's a game?
It sure is, Seamus.
What?
It's pretty cool. I'm still getting used to it.
Hold on. Is it on Steam?
I'm quite
if it's on Steam, I'm buying this shit.
It is on Steam, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think it's cross-platform.
I have to find out. Killer Clowns. What the fuck? I didn't know about that.
So it's kind of like the Texas Chainsaw game, I guess.
Yes. There is.
Yep.
Oh, shit. I may have to get this.
It's like a hide-and-seek survival kind of thing.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I like it.
Oh, I may be getting that. I did watch a movie. I watched what was it called? Stop motion.
Oh my god, you did. Stop motion. Mm-hmm.
Yes, the stop motion on Shudder. It was a good movie. I was impressed by it somewhat. It's lacking in the story department. Like it's not a crazy in-depth story, but I thought that. Did you watch it?
Well, some of it. Quite frankly, it put me to sleep.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it was creepy. I thought it was sufficiently creepy. I thought I love stop motion because stop motion is just by itself terrifying. Like those Christmas movies from the 60s and the 70s where the fucking stop motion animation. Those movies are creepy as fuck. I don't care what anybody says. Like Burlive Snowman is terrifying. But I thought it was a unique attempt at doing something different. So
it was, and it was really cool, and all the stop motion stuff was really creepy, and all the clay figures and stuff like that. It was just the storyline that was just lacking for me, that I couldn't get into it as much.
You're right, and I think that I would agree that I think the story was a little weak.
It did look super cool, and I loved those parts when it would show all the little movement and kind of like a different movie in the movie of the stop motion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's. I mean, I kind of watched a little bit of stop motion. I started rewatching Conjuring. Devil Made Me Do It because they put it on Netflix now. So
nice.
It's a fun little watch. So
I like
that's
that
really
one.
that's all I really got into. But I think that about wraps it up for this week. So I'm sure we'll kind of keep everyone posted. So again, before we sign off, don't forget next week, starting on Monday, we're going to begin revealing all of our shirt designs. So every day, Monday through Friday, we'll drop a new design, and they will all be released on sale on Friday. And again, we'll be running a contest. So make sure you check that out. If you go on to any of the posts Monday through Friday, all you have to do is be following us and tag 2 people in the post, and you are entered into a raffle to win 2 shirts. We'll get those shipped out to you. We'll draw a winner over the weekend. So until next time, this is Nick.
And this is Seamus.
This is Jamie.
Happy haunts.
Cursed. It's got a death curse. You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare,
And again, I would just just like to thank Vampire Stepdad for letting us use his music for our intro and outro music. So if you would, just go check him out. Spotify, Facebook. Again, that is Vampire Stepdad.